you can do some patching and managing the instances, that kind of thing you can do still. Another one is the AWS Target. So you do not want to manage anything, right? Everything you want to make available with the AWS itself, right? So that is why at that time you can go for the Target one. And the third one is the on-premise. So if you still want to run the containerized workload on your on-premise workloads, right? So at that time still you can use the ECS anywhere to manage the clusters. So these are the three capacity options. Now second layer is the controller. So controller is helping you out to place the task or place the containers at the particular capacity options, right? Whatever you are using, suppose you are using EC2, the controller is the ECS scheduler will place the particular task in the different capacity providers. And how you can provision? So these are the different provisioning options, like you can have the AWS CLI, you can have the Copilot, ECS Copilot, you can have the management console, right? So these are the different way by using you can create your containerized workload and host it on the ECS. So these are the ECS layers. Now where can we pick this one, right? So these are the common scenarios, right? You might go through it. Like we are in the event-driven jobs. So we are having some source things. Like take one example that we are having some event to be triggered when some object has been uploaded to S3 bucket, and you want to trigger some event, like you want to process a particular image or particular file that has been stored in the S3 bucket, and you want to store that data somewhere else, like in RDS, right? So that kind of things or that kind of jobs has been called as the event driven. Like it will take place based on the events. Okay. Second one is scheduled jobs. So you might want to run some jobs on some timings, like on a particular day, on some particular time, on 30th day of the month at 12 o'clock, right? So at that time, that particular workload will run. So like we can have some batch jobs, right? So sometimes it may happen that in your particular organization, you want, in some project, you want some data jobs to be run on particular schedule, right? So all the data from that particular source should be processed and stored somewhere else. So that kind of jobs are called as scheduled jobs, or generally we say that cron jobs, right? Third one is the continuous running services, like our backend services. Okay, generally we are using the backend services. So at that time, we can also use the ECS. And yes, we can also use the Target service to run your Kubernetes pods, right? So over this pod, we can use the ECS. So why should we choose ECS, right? So as I discussed previously, that it is the fully managed containers and orchestration service, right? So we are uploading the managed services to AWS. We do not want to manage anything. We want to just run our containerized node, right? So that is why we are choosing the ECS. So that is why it is fully managed service, and yes, it is seamless integration with AWS. Just give some permissions to your containers, give some configuration, basic configuration with the container, and yes, you are ready to go with the integration with different services. Like suppose you want the access to S3 bucket to the application running inside the Target container or some ECS container, right? So at that time you just provide the permission and give the required configuration, and at that time you are ready to go and connect with the S3 bucket, right? This is a simple use case. It is the cost effective. So yeah, as we are in the Target option as well as we are in the spot options available over here, right? So it is also cost effective. So based on your use cases, you can have different compute power over here. Yes, Target support. So yes, if you want to move toward the serverless things, you do not want to manage anything, because over here we are ECS comes with the two flavors, right? One is the EC2, if you want to run with the EC2, or if you want to run with the Target, right? So at that time, based on your requirements and based on your team size, yeah, you can have your choice. Okay, so if you want to go with the serverless option, then yes, it is also available. That is a Fargate support. Then operational simplicity with the cluster auto scaling. So if you want to scale your application based on the requirement, right? So at that time also we are having the, if you are using the EC2 with ECS, right? So ECS cluster scaling is available, as well as if you are running the load on the Fargate, right? So Fargate auto scaling is also available, right? So scaling your application is very easy. Ease of managing the cluster. So as we know that it is a fully managed, right? So we do not have to manage our cluster. So that is why, yeah, it is ease of managing the cluster. Task monitoring. So as you know that whenever we are creating the task or running the containers, right? So we will keep them running, but yes, side by side we should also monitor them. And over here, by using the CloudWatch or some other tools, you can monitor your task, like what is the resource power allocated to the particular task and how much the particular utilization of particular CPU or memory, anything, right? So we can easily monitor those tasks. And security. So as this is the managed service, right? So AWS provides many layers of security, and you can also manage many things like permissions and all that. That is in our hand, right? As you know that shared responsibility model. So some of the things are in our hand, and some of the things are hand of AWS, right? So as this is the managed service, but still there is a scope of improve the security by providing the particular permission. Like suppose we are having one application that is only reading the object from S3 bucket, and we are providing the S3 put access, right? So is this the right permission? No, right? So it is also based on us. So we have to also keep in mind the security while running the containers. But yes, AWS provides us everything to secure our environment. But what to choose, it is in our hand. And yes, it is overcoming the limitations of Lambda, right? So we cannot compare Lambda with ECS, right? Because each of them have their own role. Okay, but still there is a scope, because if you want to process some data, if you want to process some files, and those files are very large, like suppose you are giving the zip folder to be processed, right? So at that time it may take time more than 15 minutes. So at that time Lambda will not work, right? So at that time we should go with the Fargate container. So as you know that we have check the PPT in which where does ECS fits, like cron jobs, event-driven jobs, right? So in which we are doing processing of some files or some like we are running the batch jobs, right? So at that time, when there is some limit, at that time we can go for Lambda. Like suppose it is the task running within the some few minutes or few seconds, then we choose Lambda. But if you are having the huge number of files to be processed at particular time, at that time we can go with the ECS, right? So that is why I have written over here, it overcomes the limitation of Lambda, right? But don't underestimate the power of Lambda, right? Okay, because both are having their own separate user base. So I consider some common use cases that we can use in our products, right? So first one is the event-driven data loading into the database. So this is a scenario in which what we are doing, we are putting some zip or any file into S3 bucket. So that is the event, right? Some file has been uploaded to S3 bucket, and based on that event, we want to process that files and fetch all the data from the files. Like suppose we are in the JSON, data in the JSON format, right? And we need to put that data into the RDS. That is a simple use case. Okay, so what can we do? We put that particular files into S3 bucket, and over here I have utilized the event bridge to trigger the event. I utilize the event bridge to trigger the event. So you can see over here, event bridge is there. Now, other than event bridge, I have utilized other more services like SQS. So over here, what is the role of SQS? So as you know that, first of all, we are doing the processing in Fargate container, right? So there should be some code running inside the Fargate container. Yes? सिर्फ container run करने से कुछ नहीं होगा. We have to write the code, right? Processing code. So that code should access the particular object inside the S3 bucket. Yes or no? Okay. And that code should have the access the metadata of that particular object. Like ये bucket में कहाँ पे पड़ा है? Where is in the bucket? In which prefix the particular file is there? Suppose we are in hundreds of folders inside the particular bucket, right? So we have to also do that particular things. So for that purpose, what will we do? We will store the metadata into the SQS. And whenever the event triggers, so there are two things happening. One is storing the metadata into SQS, and we are creating a Fargate container. And Fargate container will fetch the metadata from the SQS and will connect to S3 bucket. Will connect to S3 bucket and fetch the particular object into that local memory and process it. And after processing it, it will store all the data into the Amazon Aurora. I hope it is clear to you, right? This is the common use case. I think generally in every project we are in at least one job that will be the event-driven job, right? Yeah, this is the first use case. The second is the scheduled data loading into the database. So this is one use case where suppose there is a product which is doing some analytics. Okay, which is doing some analytics. So for that we require some data from the particular files. So over here there is one website which is having a lot of files to be uploaded on particular duration. Like let's say example of some government website. So some government website is uploading some files related to some coordinates of something. Okay, so at that time, in a week or in a month, we have to run a job which will fetch all the files from that particular website, process them, and put all the data into some database. But this is not event-driven, right? Because the file has been stored at some website, so some third-party tool, at some third-party portal, we can say. Okay, so we cannot do the event-driven. But yes, we can run this job on some particular duration, or we can say that this should be the scheduled job. Okay, so over here we have used different services. Like I am using event-driven event bridge to schedule my job. So on that particular time, that job will be running. I am also utilizing the parameter store, which will have the environment variables to be stored over there. We are using the ECR images from where the image will be fetched into the container, and we are using Amazon Aurora to store the data, process data, right? So this is the second use case. Yeah, this is the common use case, running the backend application. Okay, so this is the simple architecture where we are having some web application running, right? So over here you can see that the CloudFront is has been hosted, has been used to like for front-end application, and over here we are utilizing the Fargate containers to run the backend application, right? And Fargate application, suppose we are in 3 different services. Okay, so 3 different services have been exposed by the AWS ALB, and ALB is connected with the CloudFront, right? So this is the common scenario in which we can utilize the Fargate. So over here I utilize only one ALB, right? But based on your use case, you can have more than one ALB. Suppose you want to connect your single ALB with a single service, right? Then it is also okay. But based on your use case, you can do that. So over here, what can we do? We can have the host-based routing. So suppose this is service1.example.com, this is service2.example.com, this is service3example.com, right? So you can do the routing in ALB to route the traffic, right? So this is the common use case where we can utilize the ECS for running the backend application. Yeah, running the Kubernetes pod. So we can also utilize the ECS Fargate to run our Kubernetes pod. But yes, it comes with certain limitations. Okay, because over here you cannot have the volume binding. Suppose you are having some container with volumes, right? So at that time you cannot use it. But yes, if you are creating some prototype of some architecture, like suppose you do not want to waste some time to create one whole architecture of the Kubernetes, and you want to just test the architecture that whether it should be running fine or not. So at that time you can utilize it. Or we can say that whenever you want some container, these are the stateless container with no volumes. So at that time also you can utilize this one. So how can we consider the pod to be running with the Fargate? So over here, first of all, we have to create the Fargate profile. So as you know that there is one namespace connect attached with the pod, right? You can see the namespace has been attached with the pod. So over here, the name of the namespace is prod. Okay. So what can we do? We can create a Fargate profile. You can see the Fargate profile over here. So we can mention in the Fargate profile that if some node comes with this namespace, then attach that particular node with this profile. Okay, so you can see over here in selectors we have a namespace prod. So whenever we are creating some code, at that time first of all we will check with the Fargate profile, so whether it is matching with some Fargate profile or not. If the matches, then the Fargate scheduler will attach that particular pod with the particular Fargate profile, and then after it will make the arrangements to run that particular pod into the Fargate. Okay, so this is another use case where you can utilize ECS Fargate to run the Kubernetes workload. Yes, whenever we are working with some services, right, and working with the cloud, so this is the most important thing to keep in our mind, the cost optimization. So what can we do? So there are certain tools available in AWS so that we can go through the cost of our services and we can take the decision that what to do next. Okay, so you can explore the cost explorer to track the running hours and usage of your Fargate containers, right? And based on it, you can take the decision that which are the containers are running fine, which are the hours to be spent by the Fargate container, and based on it you can take the decisions whether to start the add more containers, or there is no requirement, then we can flush out all the containers which are of no use. Yeah, saving plans. So as you know that AWS has introduced new things like saving plans other than the reserved instances, right? So it will also help you to reduce the cost up to 50%. Okay, so whenever you go to the cost explorer, it will also give you the suggestion, right, which saving plans are recommended for your services, right? So you can also utilize these saving plans. Yes, we can also use these spot instances, but for the interrupt tolerant task. So you know spot instances, right? So you will get the notification from the AWS before 2 minutes of flushing about that particular spot instance, right? So if you are having some workload which is interrupt tolerant, at that time you can utilize spot instances, like in auto-scaling group, right? So you can first of all select how many number of instances or number of the Fargate container you want. Okay, and in auto-scaling, like to adjust in the capacity how many instances you require. So you can have that extra instances as the spot instances so that it will not affect your main application. Right sizing. So whenever you are starting creating some application, at that time we will allocate get the 5 CPUs, 4 CPUs and all that, right? We not think about that, what could be the next things, right? When we see the billings, at that time we will come to know that, there is no need of this number of resources. Okay, so that is why we have to opt for the correct size of our containers or compute powers, right? So there is auto scaling. So as we have mentioned previously, you can also do the auto scaling to adjust the capacity. Instance scheduling. So if you are going with the ECS EC2, right? So you can also have the instance scheduling, so that suppose you are running your dev workloads and at the particular time, after particular time, your developers are not working on some application, right? So what can you do? You can simply stop that particular instance for that particular duration, at what time it is not utilized, and you can do the cost sharing, right? So that is the instance scheduling. Just security. So we can provide the security by using the IAM roles. So as we have discussed previously, that provide the permissions which is only required, not full, right? So whenever we are doing the deployment in dev, right? So every time, most of the developers, not even me, give the full access first of all, right? Then after we will figure out that what are the required permission, and we will modify the security policies, right? So IAM roles give the particular IAM role to the particular task, and it will have the access to the services. Network security. So as you know that AWS provides us the security at different layers, right? So you can manage security at particular layers like security groups. You can have the private subnet. You can have the ACLs and all that, right? Secret managers. So rather than storing the secrets hard coded in your container, we can have the secret to be stored as secret manager or the parameter store, right? So you can also secure the parameters over there. ECR image scanning. So as you know that sometimes we are pulling the images, just 1 minute. We are pulling the images from certain sources, right? But we are not aware that what the particular image developer has put into the particular image. And we are just running the workloads, right? So at that time it is also important to first of all scan that image before running the particular workload, right? So we can have the vulnerability to be scanned in the particular image. So yes, that is the ECR image scanning. Yeah, that's. If you have any question, then.
Thank you, Aniruddh sir. This session was amazing. Thanks again.
You can scan the feedback. I would like to call upon Adit sir on stage to give a token of appreciation.